Hello everyone. So today we are going to learn what is vulnerability assessment. So in this we are going to learn what is vulnerability and how we can find out those vulnerabilities present in a network or in the individual system. So this entire process of identifying the vulnerabilities and reporting is considered. Today we are going to learn what is vulnerability assessment. So in this we are going to learn how we can identify those vulnerabilities present in the network and how we can provide certain mitigation steps. So let's start from the beginning, that what is vulnerability. So vulnerability is nothing but a flaw or the weakness which is present in the system or in the network which leads to an entry point for the attacker. Now this vulnerability, or you can say the weakness present in the system or the organization's network, will compromise certain data which leads to the confidentiality, integrity and availability. So this CIA trade will be impacted. So this CIA trade to secure the system or the network, the CIA should not be impacted or compromised. So how we are going to conclude this, like how we are going to check for the vulnerability and provide the mitigations, let's see one by one. So before that, there is a concept 0-day vulnerability. Now everyone is aware of the term. Vulnerability is nothing but a weakness, a flaw, a loophole or the patch present. But what is this 0-day? 0-day term is nothing but a flaw which is unknown to the developers, to the vendors, and there is no record or signature based. The attack itself, or you can say the flaw which has been detected, is anonymous or unknown to the people till now. So that is your 0-day vulnerability. And once this vulnerability or the 0-day vulnerability is detected, the attacker use this vulnerability as a very good entry point, and then they try to exploit or generate payloads and attack to the specific organizations and their network. So at that point, this 0-day vulnerability converted into 0-day attack. So I hope you got the concept of 0-day vulnerability and 0-day attack. Now what other requirements, like how you can mitigate, what are the blue teaming going to do when they are identifying some suspicious activity. So for that we have, like you can say, it's a 0-day vulnerability. It is unknown to the people. So whether it's developer or vendor, any one of them, they are not having any idea about this vulnerability. So there will be no patch available instantly for this vulnerability, and then attacker can use it as a plus point. Now the third stuff is that it is very much in boom for cyber criminals or suicide attackers, script kiddies. So these are the different types of hackers which use this particular vulnerability to penetrate in the organization's network. Now right now there is no patch available. So what you can do, or the blue teaming will going to do, they will going to provide a temporary mitigation till the vulnerability become known. They will going to give some mitigation, like you have to update your software, keep updated antivirus, or the second thing they can go for is they can check for their IDS, IPS, any kind of threat or alert is there or not. And lastly we have a incident response. So this incident response itself is a team where they are going to check for the any kind of mitigation which could immediately help for the organization to get prevented from this breaches or from this 0-day attack. Now we have different types of vulnerability. The basic concept of the vulnerability is like a very layman language, it's an entry point. But how this entry point is being considered to the attacker, how they are knowing that this is the only entry point from where we can enter to the organization's network. So for that we have software vulnerability, hardware vulnerability, configurations vulnerability, protocols vulnerability, and human vulnerability. So human is a very weakest chain in terms of vulnerability. Human beings are the very weakest chain because they are sharing their stuffs like their credentials, their password very easily to their friends, to their followings, just to be more friendly, and that is the very big weak point in terms of digital world. Now let's see one by one what is this vulnerability talking about. So the very first is software vulnerability. Software vulnerability is a flaw present in the software. Suppose there is a software recently designed, but in that code there is certain flaw which leads to the entry, you can say entry to the database. So that is the vulnerable code itself. In this case you can say the code or the software which has been deployed is not properly made, and there are certain flaws which are not patched properly. So what this flaws or you can say unpatched software could leads to, they can leads to buffer overflow, injections attack, cross-site scripting. Now buffer overflow occurs when the attack is on your memory. If you have the capacity, or you can say your server or your website is having the capacity of holding only 100 peoples or 150 peoples, and the entry request or you can say the access request to those websites are more than 150, even it's 151, there is a buffer overflow. So attacker might use this buffer overflow attack to crash the software. Now the next thing we have hardware vulnerability. So every time when we thought about the vulnerability, we are always concerned about software, but there are some flaws or the weakness that is present in your physical devices like your hardware, which could also lead to a heavy harmful impact for the reputation of the organizations. And this flaw can lead to a backdoor entry or you can say side channels attack. Now on the hardwares there are different kind of attack possible, but this hardware attacks or you can say hardware vulnerability is only possible if the hardware is not properly designed or you can say hardware is not properly implemented, and hardware attack mainly occurs when the attacker is present physically in that particular premises. So basically you can say the intruder kind of attack when it leads to with the hardware. Now we have configuration. So what is this configuration? So whenever we are designing some software, whenever we are making certain configuration changes in the network, at that time it might happen that all the configuration setup is not properly done. There might be chances that some configuration has left without being disabling or enabling properly. Some designs has not been configured that enough to get the security, so then attacker can get the entry or you can say the exploit, they can generate exploit in that particular system or network. Now next we have protocols and humans. So if you guys can recall, in yesterday's session we were talking about the CIDR, IP, subnetting, and there we have learned the TCP IP model in which we were talking about that we have certain protocols used by the application layer. So the protocol often carries secure ports and insecure ports. So if any organization is No, configuration is not same like your software. Software is only talking about the, you can say, the interface. But when we are talking about the configuration, configuration is with respect to your network, with respect to your software, with respect to your hardware, anything. Like if you are making a new project, so for making a project you need a proper plan and design. So when you're designing, like assume you're making a blueprint for the project, and in that planning you might forget, like you have to make a security design. That could also lead to a misconfiguration. Misconfiguration is actually how you're implementing that particular design, whether it's about your software, hardware, or not network. So I hope you're clear with the configuration stuff and the software. So now let's talk about this protocol. So whenever we are using any domain or any certifications, so in that we are using only secure websites or URLs. At that time we have HTTPS and not we are using HTTP, because that's the reason that we want to make sure that everything in the entire internet world, whatever we are using right now, it should be secure enough that our data should not be entered to a wrong path, to the wrong direction, where some bad actors or bad person should use it, like you can say misuse that data. So for that, the protocols are one of the essential point when you are checking for the vulnerabilities. Now lastly we have human. Why I have said that human is one of the weakest chain in the entire vulnerabilities respect, because human are very easy to manipulate. Like suppose if you are having a very close friend or siblings, and they are asking for your Netflix password, your Disney Hotstar subscription, or any social media accounts, you are very easily, as a friend or as a sibling, you are sharing your credentials with them. So that is one of the major flaw, or you can say the drawback with us, that we are sharing our own credentials with the person. We might knowing that person, but at certain point there might be chances that they are sharing our credentials to their friends, to their siblings, to their cousins. So this sharing of the contents could lead to a heavy, you can say heavy drawback for a person, because if the third person data is already being compromised, they can get into your network or into your system. TLS is nothing but TLS actually SSL and TLS works in your certification. Like whenever you are using any kind of YouTube, or even you are referring any website, on the right side there is a log, or you can say that secure sign is there. When if you are clicking on that particular log, you will see the certifications, and that certification, whether that certificate is secure or not, it's depend on this TLS and SSL. So basically it's stating that whenever you have a secure not certificate, a secure web page or website design, it will be with the SSL and TLS. Also the very good example for TLS is your email. Whenever you are using email, at like suppose you are using the email, at that time if you want to check from where the email has been sent to you, the original person, whenever you are clicking on that, you will see that the original person name, that sent from to, and then you can also see that it is written that it is secure, and the security has been provided with SSL and TLS. So that is what your TLS and SSL. It's for basically the security, the for the transportation of your data over the internet. Okay, now let's talk about the human, because for human, like you can say manipulations or social engineering. So social engineering is nothing but you are trying to manipulate a person and you are trying to gather the sensitive information, whether it's personal information, whether their credentials. So this is what this social engineering method, and that's the reason we are saying that human are one of the weakest chain when concerned with the vulnerability. So now you guys tell me, from among all this vulnerability, if there is an attack, or you can say SQL injection or any kind of vulnerability is been detected, so how will you are going to find out like whether it's basically on the software basis or the hardware basis? Hello, can anyone say me like scanner? Not scanner, but yes, your if the vulnerability is already present in the database, you can use any automated tools or manual tools to check that what kind of vulnerability is it. So it's not the scanner, but yes, you can use certain tools, or you can say there are certain automated tools as well as the vulnerability assessment or analyst team will be there. They will help you to find out this, or uh, the second option that we have is the incident responder team or the SOC monitoring team. Yes, Asadullah, it's right. Monitoring team is the one which is responding very firstly, and that's the reason we have an incident responder team. So how this vulnerability is being updated, because all this vulnerability should be reported somewhere, then and then only everyone in the globe are going to know that this particular vulnerability leads to certain kind of risk. So there is different databases present for that, but before looking to the databases, let's talk about the vulnerability updations. So to update that vulnerability, you have automated scanning tools. Now what this automated scanning tools actually do, if you are using any automated tools like Nessus, so this tool are basically going to check for any kind of scans or any kind of vulnerabilities present in the target or the network or not. So there your task is limited, you have to simply automate the task and that particular tool is going to do all the work for you. Second, we have security researchers. So in this particular domain of cyber security, we have a researcher team, security researcher. They are the one who is actively searching for the vulnerabilities, for any kind of exploit. So that's the reason sometimes it happened that a vulnerability has been figured out which is not yet, or you can say till now, known by anyone. So the early prevention from the breaches could happen. Thirdly, we have researchers which notify the vendors that this could be the vulnerability that could impact your surrounding, or you can say that could impact your organization. So researchers also help the clients or the vendors to discover those vulnerabilities, and they are helping the vendors to fix that vulnerabilities. Now once this vulnerability is being identified, all the patches has been made, so finally the organizations are going to maintain a proper report of that vulnerability, and they will be disclosing that patch released to the if they are having their own database, vulnerability management database, they are going to store over there, or they are going to maintain that vulnerabilities in different database provided by the organization, which are provided by the organizations like NVD or CV. So this is the way that vulnerabilities are being updated on the daily basis for the continuous, or you can say proper ongoing of the organizations. So when we are talking about this vulnerabilities like 0-day or anything, we have vulnerability databases. So I have listed out few vulnerabilities, that is Microsoft, Manage Engine, CV and NVD. So any one of you, if you are present in the first session, there we have talk about the NVD, CV, CWE. So what is the full form of this NVD, CV or CWE? Can anyone just simply write in the chat box? Guys, you can write in the chat box that what is the full form of this NVD and CV. Yes, NVD is your National Vulnerability Database. And what about CVE? Okay. So everyone is clearly aware about this NVD, CV and CW. So this database, your NVD database, CV database, CWE database are actually used by the developers, or you can say the security experts, to patch the secure software or to patch the networks. So that's the reason this database are being used. Also, Manage Engine Plus are having their own different database, which is giving you all the updations of vulnerability present. Now Microsoft itself is a very big company, so they are having their own database for the particular vulnerability, and if you want to search for any Microsoft related query, like Microsoft is having any vulnerability for PHP, JSON, MySQL language, you can simply go on the Microsoft website, and if you are browsing over for MSRC, so that is Microsoft research team, which has been given you all the vulnerabilities related to Microsoft. So you can also go for the specific organizations vulnerability, and also for the national or the global vulnerability, that is your NVD, CV and CWE. Now we have management cycle. Till now we have talked about the vulnerabilities, 0 days, common types of vulnerabilities and the database and how it's updated. So let's take a quick question, that in this vulnerability scenario, what is 0-day vulnerability? Quickly just answer in the chat box that what is 0-day vulnerability. Avinash, what is this coordinated vulnerability? What are you trying to answer? Exactly. 0 day could be anything which is a vulnerability which is unknown to the people till now, or the vulnerability which is not having any kind of patch or remediations, or any kind of release is not there. So Sadiq, Asad, Kiran and Nofil, yes, you are exactly right that anything which is unknown or not discovered yet is considered to have 0 day vulnerability. Okay, so now let's talk how you can identify that vulnerability and prepare that report. So there is a life cycle talking about this vulnerability management, how you can manage this vulnerability. So we have 7 phases for that, that is identification, assessment, prioritizations, remediation, verification, monitoring and reporting. And guys, just be active on the group, because in the middle of the session only there will be attendance list going to share. So just be active, because on that attendance only you are going to mark that you are attending the session. Okay, so now let's talk about the vulnerability management life cycle. So the very first thing that you have to do is that you have to identify the vulnerability. Suppose if you are working for any kind of organization, so suppose if you are working for any kind of organization, at that time you, the very first thing that you should do is identify the vulnerability present in that network. Once the identification has been done, like right now you have identified there are suppose 4 or 5 vulnerability present in the network. After that, the most important thing came, that how you are going to assess that particular vulnerability and how you are going to prioritize that vulnerability. So for that you should know the risk management. So risk management or CVSS score occurs over here in the assessment and the prioritization, which help you to assess, or you can say which helps you to prioritize that vulnerability, whether it is very much critical vulnerability, or the vulnerability can be ignored, or it is just a false alert. So anything like how this vulnerability should be managed, or how the remediation should be taken on that, is that judgment is been made when you are doing the prioritization of that vulnerability. So for prioritizing those vulnerability, you should be knowing what is that CVSS score, and what is CV, what is CWE, or what kind of vulnerability is that, that is NVD. So what is the full form of CVSS? We have two CVSS, that CVSS version 2, CVSS version 3. So what is the CVSS full form? I have told that in the very first session. So anyone can just simply write in the chat box that full form of CVSS, because CVSS is the one which is help. Avinash, I am not getting why are you writing coordinated vulnerability, coordinated vulnerability. There is no such term like coordinated vulnerability. Guys, anyone just simply write in the chat box. Yes, it is common vulnerability scoring system. Now this common vulnerability scoring system is actually checking your basic temporal and environmental stuff, and on basis of this three things your CVS score is generated, whether you are doing using it automated or the manual tool, and this tool will help you to prioritize that risk. Okay, yeah, I got it. So now just after prioritizing that particular vulnerability on the basis of the CVSS score, the next thing you are going to provide an instant remediation. So remediation is nothing but providing a mitigation step which helps the organization to which will help the organization from getting any kind of data leakage, ransom attack, or it will help the organization to neglect the data breaches. Now after the successful giving the remediations and all that, you have to verify that what kind of vulnerability it is, from where this vulnerability has been occurred, because sometimes it could also happen that it is a false alert. Okay, what now when I am saying that false alert, so false alert is basically talking about that the action which has been occurred on the network premises or in the system, that could be due to certain misconfiguration or any kind of rule based, due to that it could happen. So from getting you should not take any kind of remediation on the authorized person. So for that you have to verify that whether that vulnerability which has been triggered or which has been identified is actually a vulnerability or just it's a false alert triggered over your network. So how this verification is done, it will be done based on the monitoring. So the monitoring team or the blue teaming person will going to check, or you can say the threat hunting team will help to check the detailed investigation of that vulnerability, that how it has happened. Okay, so they are going to go in deeper inside that particular vulnerabilities, and after getting certain kind of evidences, IOC and IOA, they are going to prepare a very good report in which the identification of this vulnerability, what system will going to get compromised, and how you have to provide certain prevention, that is temporary mitigations, instant remedy on that. So each and everything, a detailed report will be generated lastly. So I have just now talked about the term IOC and IOA. So anyone could just tell me what is IOC and IOA, because as a monitoring person or as a vulnerability management analyst, you should know that what the term IOC and IOA is. Guys, anyone just can write in the chat box if you are not knowing what is this IOC and IOA. Just simply write that you are not knowing that as well. Yes, Saurav. IOC is your indicator of compromise, and the another term we have IOA. So that IOA is your indicator of attack. Exactly. So this IOC and IOA are used by the, you can say, security teams or the team who are doing monitoring to identify or to gather the evidence. Exactly. So your IOC is nothing indicator of compromise, which is gathering the evidence that what data has been compromised during certain kind of breach or attack. An indicator of indicator of attack is nothing but it's checking the attack parameter, what kind of attack it is or how harmful that attack is. Okay, now let's talk about the tools. So attendance sheet will going to share in any time. You have to just be active on the group. The team will share the attendance sheet. No, don't take tension about your attendance. Okay. So for this scanning of the vulnerability, we have certain tools. So I have listed a few tools, that is Nessus, OpenVAS, GFI LandGuard, Nikto, Nexpose, Qualcy Free Scan, Manage Engine Vulnerability Manager Plus, and for mobile vulnerability scanner, one of the good mobile scanner, we have Vulner Scanner. Now this so many tools we have, but if you want to check for the free tool or the graphical, more of the graphical interface, I will suggest you can go for Qualcy Free Scan. Or if you want to go for the, you want to deploy the particular software or tool on your network, you can go for Nessus as well. So let's check how this tool are going to work and how it will be beneficial for scanning the network. So for that we required a virtual machine. So I am using my Kali machine, and in the root user itself I am going to use Nessus. So to simply start the Nessus, I have to go to the respective directory, that is downloads, because in my downloads I have the Nessus. Yeah, Nessus is having the premium version, but I am not using the premium version of Nessus. We are going to use the free version. So Nessus Essential is the free version and you can use that, because Nessus Essential is not only giving you the very good environment to scan or to check certain stuff, but also it is very good for the beginners who want to practice more on the vulnerability or who want to go for the vulnerability analyst. So you can definitely use Nessus, but the essential, not the premium one. Premium Nessus premium is for the organizations only. So for you guys, just you can use Nessus essential. So to start the Nessus, basically you have to recall the very basic command, that is system ctl start Nessus d.service, because in this command your Nessus is actually starting by calling the system itself. So right now my Nessus service is actually started, but to check whether the system or the service is actually started working or not, you can check the status. So simply instead of start, you can type status, and over here you can check that the active state. It's showing that active, it's running right now. So the most important thing for Nessus, Sunil, what are you trying to ask, like about OpenVAS? Okay. Now, once you have started the Nessus from your command line, after that you have to go on your any favorite browser and simply type https colon double slash and your local host, that is 127.0.0.1, because I am trying to run this Nessus on my local machine, and for that we have a port number, that is 8834. So 8834 is your port number of the Nessus. Yeah, you can go with the OpenVAS also, Sunil, but OpenVAS is taking quite more time than the Nessus, because when you are running the OpenVAS na, at that time at the backend it's trying to start all the plugins, like in the you can see in the updated feeds, they are trying to update all the feeds. So majority of the time it happens that it takes a prolonged time sometime. So that's the reason I am just making you guys aware with the Nessus. But if you want that OpenVAS, we can try to do that in the network vulnerability. We have a session over there, we can go with that. But right now just let's go with the Nessus, because it will take some 30-35 minutes to upload all the plugins in OpenVAS. So that's the reason I am using the Nessus right now. So whenever you are logging to the Nessus, it will ask for the credential. That credential you have make when you are installing this particular software. And this Nessus actually take no worries, I will give you the Nessus setup process, like how you can set up it in the group itself. So don't take tension about that. If you are not having Nessus, it will take minimum 45 minutes to install, and it also depend on your network, how good your network is. So I'm going to provide that, so don't worry about the Nessus. So beauty of this, yeah, the problem with these tools is that it is taking your extra storage present in that. So for that you can simply do that, certain tools which you are not using right now, you can uninstall that particular package, libraries or tool from your environment, and then you can use this Nessus tool. Or the second option is that you have to increase your space by using external SSD or storage, because if you are having very low power or like very low storage of 4 GB, 3 GB, 5 GB, you will not able to deploy each and everything on your environment. Yeah, there might be chances there are flaws that are unknown to the developer, but regarding those patches, it could happen that the team is working on that patches, because for them also it take a certain time period to check that particular flaw and make a proper assessment on that. So that's the reason I told you na. So that's the reason a 0-day vulnerability or exploit or attack is happening, because a vulnerability which is not known to the developer itself, it takes certain amount of time to them to make a proper patch on it. Okay, now let's talk about how you can scan a particular network, or how you can go for a particular target to scan. So if you can see on my dashboard over here, there are 3 to 4 scan present, because I have already practiced that. But it is not possible that it's not giving you the high, medium or low. So let me just give you practically that scenario, then you will be able to rectify that. Suppose I want to scan for the organization, any organization. So right now I am trying to go for the basic network scan. So for basic network scan, my target over here, you can say, is again scanme.nmap.org. So let's give it a name as VAPT1, and my target is the scanme.nmap.org. So I am simply typing the domain name, because consider that you are not aware about its IP address. So you are trying to fetch this particular target information with its domain name itself. And now I am just trying to save that particular scan. So scan has been successfully saved, but the scan has not yet been started. So what I can do is I can launch the scan from here. So you can see that the scan has been launched, and you can also click on this particular name, and you can check that the status is showing that it's running. And we are talking about that vulnerabilities updating the database. So Nessus is using the CV or the NVD database to be updated with all the recent vulnerabilities. So that's the reason the severity score is maintained on the basis of that CVSS version 3. So it will take a moment to scan the organization, and also it's depend what scan you have allotted. Like over here, if I am going back to the scans, or you can say all scans, I have scanned this many. So over here you can say I am trying to discover the host. In this I am trying to discover the basic network scan. So what information you are providing to scan the particular target, it depends on that. If you are just simply trying to gather information about the host, and there is not any kind of vulnerability with respect to that host, you will not able to see any kind of high, medium or low severity ranges. So that might be chances that there will be no vulnerability or severity you are getting. So it depend on what scan you have allotted. So now over here, if you can see, I have scanned the particular host, that is scanme.nmap.org, and this was a basic scan. So that's the reason I have got the informational right now, and it's still running. The scan has not yet been completed. So based on the organization, how big the organization or network, on that the scan will take that certain amount of time, like 15 minutes, 10 minutes, or 20 minutes. Also, if you guys can see, this all scan will show you all the scan till now you have done, and my scans is a by default folder that all your scanning will going to save over here itself. So anyone having any question with respect to how you are going to use this scan? So guys, do you have any question with respect to Nessus, how you can scan? Because if you are going on new scan, you are going to see n number of options over here, like you have advanced scan, dynamic scan, malware scan. So you have to be very clear and precise about what you are talking, like which scan you want to go for, or what you want to check from that particular targeted network or the target system. And most importantly, this upgraded one has a free user, we cannot use this upgraded one. So you have to be very clear about each and everything, that if you want to check for the compliances vulnerabilities, so at that time you have to be the premium user, or the you have to pay for this particular tool. So I will not recommend to you that you should buy this particular software, because it's a very heavy amount. So if you guys are not having any kind of questions, we will going to soon end up the session. Another difference between risk, threat, and vulnerability is, let's talk about in a very layman language. When you are talking about vulnerability, it means a weakness or the flaw which is helping the attacker to enter in the network. Now, when you are talking about the threat, a threat is something which is helping the attacker how to enter. Okay, how to enter in your network. So that is threat. And the very common formula for this is that risk is equals to vulnerability plus threat, because risk could only occur in the system or to the organization when there are certain vulnerability or the flaw which remained unpatched, and this vulnerability remained unpatched for very long period, and that vulnerability could lead to a certain threat, that is scarcity, that at any certain point an attack could happen on the organization. So this is a kind of threat. A threat means you are scared of something. That vulnerability is scaring you, that at certain point or at any point there could be a heavy breach or heavy ransomware or attack could occur. And this threat is nothing but this threat leads to the risk. So risk is something which you are taking when you are the very basic thing is when any kind of attack has occurred on your organization, and now there is heavy chances that the data might steal, or data sensitive information could get steal from the organization. So that is nothing but that point you can say it is a risk, that risk to the organization reputation, risk of misuse, getting the data misused. So I hope Anand now you are clear with these three different terms: vulnerability, threat and risk. The one word answer could be vulnerability means the flaw which is unpatched. Threat could be the how the attacker is attacking on the organizations, and risk where the data or your confidentiality is gone. Guys, you can fill the attendance link is already provided to you. IOC is not a tool, but IOC is a way how you are trying to detect that how many data or asset is being compromised in a particular network or the organization. IR is stands for basically the incident responder, Anand, and BC is business continuity, and DR is your disaster recovery. And this business continuity and disaster recovery having a different role of auditing. Okay, it's a different domain where you have to check for all the compliances, all the regulations, all the framework, and the all the compliances is being properly followed by the organizations or not. And if there is certain disaster, your business or the organization business should be go in a smooth manner. And incident responder is basically your blue teaming. Yeah, I know it's easy to go for the Nessus, but for full Nessus working it will take an entire 1 hour session, and we are talking about VAPT, like how you can go for vulnerability assessment, what tools you can go, what is different uh, kind of threats and all that, and penetration testing. So right now it's not possible for me to show the entire working process, but if you have any question with respect to this, you can simply ask me over here or on in the WhatsApp group, because we are not focused about the working process of the tool. We are focused how this different domains are working in the cyber security, and what tools are there and how frequently you can use. Okay, cyber secure guys. Rapid 7 is not a tool. First of all, Rapid 7 is an organization which is providing various tools for the penetration testing and vulnerability assessment. And when you're talking about Nessus and Aquantics, for sure I will go for the Nessus, because Nessus is giving you a very good scanning environment, and you can easily deploy it on your local machine itself. So if you guys are not having any questions, we can end the session. So thank you so much, guys.